Hey everyone, welcome to week 12 of our class, EMHS 6513, Technology for Comprehensive Emergency Management. My name is Dempsey Craft, and my partner Talia McDaniel and I are presenting on UAVs and drones for emergency management. So welcome to November. We're going to go through this subject, and then we're going to talk about just UAVs in general, their uses in emergency management, go over a little just overview of the readings that we have for this week, and then our discussion question. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. So unmanned aircraft systems, UAVs, drones, those are all the same term. Basically, they're interchangeable terms, and they all mean an aircraft without a human pilot on board. There are some of these drones or UAVs that have AI, but we're not going to cover that in detail in this, but that is something that's out there. But anything that is an aerial vehicle that does not have a human pilot on board is considered a UAS or a UAV. There are a couple of different types, main types of UAVs. The first you can see there is a fixed wing, so you just think of basically an airplane. So an airplane has fixed wings, so it's called a fixed wing. And then the most common type of drone or UAV that we see is actually the helicopter type. Generally, we see emergency management, at least I've seen, is the quadcopter. So it'd be actually 4 propellers that control a little drone. So a UAV, UAS drone, whatever you want to say for those terms. For regulations, the Federal Aviation Administration actually regulates drone usage. They do that through a law called 14 CFR Part 107. If that Part 107 sounds familiar, that's actually what the license is generally called. People will call it the Part 107 license, and that's required for any UAV that's over 5 pounds. The law does require that you take a test. It requires that you pass it, and in that it goes over some of the restrictions and some of the things you can do and you can't do. Some of those are: you must avoid manned aircraft when you're flying a UAV. You must maintain a line of sight. You must not fly over people, fly at night, fly higher than 400 feet, or fly faster than 100 miles per hour. That's not all the restrictions, but that's some of the main ones. So that's kind of the general about for UAVs. Now we're going to talk about how they are utilized in emergency management. So UAVs in emergency management, first off, there are different laws that actually apply for governments and public safety, and you'll see in some of your readings that governments and public safety can actually apply to get a certificate of waiver or authorization through that law that you see listed there. And it allows the government or the public safety agency to actually authorize drone usage in their jurisdiction. And now that drone usage has to be for public safety or public use. It can't be for like PR, it can't be for marketing, it can't be for commercial or business use. So that is something that you have to note with emergency management, because my agency, Choctaw Nation Office of Emergency Management, we're actually housed in the Public Safety Department of the Choctaw Nation. And so our Director of Emergency Management actually is the one for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma that can authorize somebody to fly a drone. And they still have to follow the same rules as Part 107, but they just have the ability to do that without getting a license. In disaster management, we'll see that data collection and communication are the 2 main ways that drones are used. And then we'll go over a little bit more detail about the Integrated Pilot Program, which is a program that the Federal Aviation Administration and the U.S. Department of Transportation are doing with some partners to expand potential UAV and drone operations. So for data collection, generally with UAVs, you're going to see, for mitigation preparedness, you're going to see a lot of mapping, floodplain mapping with LiDAR, urban mapping, getting images of facilities before a disaster so you can compare that to after, and then response. Incident surveillance. So we've had some protests within the Choctaw Nation that have happened recently, and so we use drones that we can fly over. It's much cheaper than a helicopter, and it allows us to get image of those protests and be able to monitor that from a safe distance. You can also do preliminary damage assessments. You can also do search and rescue. That's another thing that we do a lot at the Choctaw Nation with our drones, is we assist with search and rescue. We'll put even infrared cameras on those to look for people at night or under trees. Hazmat situations, you can actually send a drone into a hazmat hot zone, and they can monitor the situation and get a better picture of what's going on without putting people in danger. Wildfire detection, you can put different cameras on that. We have one of our journal articles that you'll read to this week actually talks about that. And then flood inundation. So if there's flood water, sometimes you can't get to that location safely to see how far they've inundated. So getting a drone up in the air to be able to look at that is very useful. Communication. So this was a new one for me just recently. Within the last 12 months I found out about. Drones are now being equipped with communication equipment. So one of the articles that you'll have will talk about, that you'll have to read, will talk about the potential of setting up a UAV network after a disaster to provide connectivity to the disaster area. Additionally, there's something that's called a FirstNet flying cow, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail in a little bit, but it's essentially a tethered drone that's called a cell on wings that can put a bubble of band 14 connectivity over a site for first responders to use for cell service and for data usage. Now, the integrated pilot program, this is something that the FFA and the U.S. Department of Transportation have right now to test new low altitude drone operations. And what I'm pulling up right now are the 9 IPP lead participants from tribal, state, and local governments, as well as private industry. And this last one I'm pretty proud of is the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. We are actually one of only 9 organizations within the United States that got signed up for this. And this program allows these participants to actually test different types of operations to see if they're safe beyond what Part 107 allows. So that's something that's coming out, allowing drone usage to get more complex and allowed to do more things than what currently can happen. So that's kind of the usages in emergency management. So now we're going to look at some of the readings for this week. So the readings, we did a group of readings. Some are journal articles, some are videos from the internet, and some are just some internet sources. Journal articles, I mentioned some of these before. You'll see some that address drone usage in emergency and disaster response. You'll see an article that talks about UAV-aided emergency network, where they send drones up to hover in a certain location, and they send a bunch of them up, and it's a test. It's a research test to see if it would be possible to provide connectivity to a disaster area when all cellular data and cellular towers have been destroyed. Pre-disaster mapping, there's an article about that, and then there'll also be one about wildfire management. Videos, again, I talked about FirstNet Flying Cow. This is a really cool system. This is something that's specific for first responders, which emergency management is. FirstNet and AT&T is a communication program that AT&T got. They bid for with the federal government, and it allows them to have band 14, which is a specific band of radio wave for first responders. And what they do is they put that capability on a drone, tether it up, send it up in the sky, and it creates a larger quote-unquote bubble of connectivity for first responders. So we've got a few videos of that. Then some internet sources. We're going to go straight to the source, the Federal Aviation Administration. There'll be a link that talks about the programs for public safety and governments, and then also the integrated pilot program. And then again, big fan of this FirstNet Flying Cow system. I think it's very innovative, so there'll be a couple links about that. So to finish up for the discussion, we want you all to take all of this that you've read and really consider, is it worth it for local emergency managers to invest in a UAV drone program? Drones can be cheap or expensive. They have lots of different capabilities, lots of different sizes. So we want you to consider, based on your reading, your experience, additional research, is it worth it for a local emergency manager or local emergency management program to invest in UAV drone program? Secondly, we want you to consider if there's any new or innovative drone operations that could help emergency managers. Is there something that the integrated pilot program should test beyond just beyond line of sight flight? Test beyond just night flights? Test beyond doing flights over people? So consider, are there new and innovative ways to actually use drones? So that's what we want you to discuss. We are excited about this subject. Really big shout out to my partner Talia. She found some amazing articles over this. So there's a lot of resources. You can always email us, but we are really excited about this. We think drones are worthwhile in emergency management, and we are excited to see the discussion, and we hope that these resources will help you get excited about the drones in emergency management.